The day after the college entrance exam, top students from key high schools across the province were summoned back to their schools for a meeting on score estimation and college application guidance. 36 students, considered strong contenders for admission to Tsinghua, Peking, Fudan, and Shanghai Jiaotong universities, boarded a bus bound for the Municipal Education Examination Authority, Xinqingwan. The top student in her grade and widely recognized as a top scorer candidate leaned back in her seat and sighed softly. How pitiful. They finally finished the exams, and now they're tied down by their scores in college applications all day. With that, she had everyone on the bus follow her. After taking photos under the wishing balloons on the popular rooftop, praying at the top scholar temple, and experiencing cooking over a fire at a campsite, the 35 people followed her from one stop to the next. Only I desperately wanted to get off. In my past life, I hadn't gotten off in time, and the whole class missed the college application deadline, while I was left stranded on the mountain road, crushed to pieces, standing on the same bus, looking at Xinqingwan's sweet smile. I only wanted to know one thing: you don't want me to bear all this for you. Can your dream of getting into Fudan University and taking it easy still come true? Why did you jump? Someone screamed. But I was already rolling down the side of the bus, my palms scraping against gravel, my backpack slamming against my spine. The bus was speeding away, filled with my classmates, all of them following Xinqingwan like sheep. She had just smiled her sweet smile and said, "Come on, let's go to the rooftop, let's light a wish balloon, let's enjoy this freedom before the rankings come out." And they all cheered, all except me, because I had already died on this day once before. Last time, I didn't jump, I stayed on the bus. Too afraid to be different, too desperate to be liked, and they took me to the mountain campsite, and I missed my college entrance exam final registration. I was found dead the next morning, crushed under a broken bridge, my exam slip torn in half, my identity erased. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the seat, Xinqingwan's voice dripping with sweetness, the same damn lie wrapped in a ribbon. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I looked at her, and I remembered everything. So I waited until the bus turned a corner, and I jumped. The driver didn't stop. She didn't let him stop. "Keep going," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She clearly doesn't want to be with us. Let her walk back to school if she cares so much." No one asked if I was hurt, no one asked why I jumped. They just watched me disappear in the dust through the back window, and then they turned back to their selfies, their balloons, their borrowed happiness. I got up, blood running down my knee, and started running. The exam registration office was 10 kilometers away. I had exactly 90 minutes before the final cutoff. I didn't care. I had already survived the worst. This time, I would run. This time, I would not let her steal my future. I jumped. The bus was still moving, maybe 40 miles per hour, and I didn't wait for it to slow. I had been sitting by the emergency exit for 10 minutes, counting. The window latch was loose. I had noticed it last time too. But last time I hadn't used it. Last time, I was still trying to belong. This time, I knew better. My body hit the ground like a sack of rocks. I felt my left knee crack, my palms shred against gravel, and my backpack flew off and bounced down the embankment. I landed on my side, rolled twice, and came to a stop in a ditch full of dry grass. The bus didn't stop. I saw Xinqingwan's face in the window for just a second. She was sitting in the front row, as always, leading everyone. She was smiling. She had seen me fall. She had probably planned this somehow, even though I didn't tell anyone I was going to jump. But she didn't stop the bus. No one did. The bus turned a corner and disappeared behind a hill, leaving me alone on the side of the road with blood running down my leg. I lay there for a second, staring at the sky. The sky was the same blue as yesterday. The sun was the same. The birds were singing the same stupid song, but I was not the same. I pushed myself up. My hands were bleeding. My knee was screaming. But I had 90 minutes. I grabbed my backpack, limped onto the road, and started running. The exam registration office was at the city education building, 9 kilometers away, 9 kilometers on a wounded leg. Impossible, some part of me whispered, but that part was the old me, the one who had died before I ran. I passed the sign for the internet-famous rooftop that Xinqingwan had planned to take everyone to. The balloons were already being inflated. I saw a cluster of students from another school posing for photos. They didn't even look at me as I limped past them, sweat and blood mixing. I didn't care. I ran. By the time I reached the first traffic light, my phone buzzed. A group message from Xinqingwan. She was sending photos to the class group, the balloons, the rooftop, the selfies. She had already gathered everyone there. They were laughing. They were free, and I was running alone. Another buzz. A private message from her. "Linwan, where are you? We waited for you at the bus stop." I almost laughed. She knew exactly where I was. I didn't answer. I turned into a Side street, trying to cut through the university campus to save time. A security guard stopped me, saw my bloodied leg, and asked if I needed help. I showed him my student ID and told him I was trying to get to the registration office. He let me through. I ran faster, 10 minutes to go, and I was still 2 kilometers away. My leg was numb. I didn't feel the pain anymore. I only felt the memory. A bridge. A broken bridge. The bus driving up a mountain road in the dark. Shinchingwan saying it was a shortcut, the railing giving way, the bus falling, me, thrown from the window, landing on the rocks below, waking up, pinned under the wreckage, my phone dead, my leg broken, screaming for help as the sky turned dark. No one came because no one knew I was there, and the next morning, when the news said 37 students on a field trip killed in a bus accident, no one even said my name right. They spelled it Linwan, the same alias Shinchingwan had made me use, because Shinchingwan wanted my identity. She had been stealing my results for 3 years, my homework, my exam answers, my scholarship applications, and now, she had tried to steal my death. But I was alive, I was running. 6 minutes to go. I could see the building ahead, the city education office, tall and gray, with the national flag on top. There were maybe 20 students lining up at the entrance, with their parents, their documents, their calm faces. I was the only one running. I pushed through the front door, nearly collapsing at the counter. My knee gave out. I grabbed the edge, breathing hard. My voice cracked. Linwan, I'm here to register for the final exam results filing. The woman behind the counter looked at me like I was crazy. Blood was dripping onto the floor. My face was covered in dirt. My hands were shaking, but I had my backpack. I pulled out my documents, the real ones, the ones I had hidden inside the lining of my backpack, sewn in by hand. After I woke up in the hospital last time and realized the truth, my birth certificate, my original admission ticket, my school transcript, everything they had tried to destroy. The woman looked at my documents, then back at me. You're the one who called ahead yesterday. I nodded. I had called from a payphone the day before. She stamped my papers. You cut it close. The deadline is in 2 minutes. I know, I said, and I finally let myself smile, but the smile didn't last. Behind me, the door swung open, footsteps, angry voices. Shinchingwan, her mother, the school's homeroom teacher, Mr. Zhang. They had come back, and they looked furious. I turned around, still holding my stamped documents, and faced the 3 people standing in the office doorway. Shinchingwan looked different than she did in the group photos. She was no longer smiling. Her face was pale, her eyes sharp, her voice thin. Linwan, what are you doing here? Her mother stood beside her, a tall woman in a designer coat, holding a designer handbag, with the cold, calculating eyes of someone who had always gotten what she wanted. Mr. Zhang stood behind them, looking uncomfortable. He had always favored Shinchingwan. She was the good student, the face of the school, the hope for Tsinghua. But I knew the truth. I held up my registration slip. I'm doing what you tried to stop me from doing. Shinchingwan stepped forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. Don't make a scene, Linwan. We can talk outside. I'm not going anywhere, I said. I'm already registered. The deadline is over. Her mother's eyes narrowed. Linwan, why are you being so difficult? Qingwan only wanted to take everyone out to relax after the exam. You chose to leave the group. That's on you. Don't try to make her look bad because of your own decision. My hands were still shaking from the run, but I kept my voice steady. I chose to leave, and I also chose to register. She chose to take everyone to a rooftop instead. That's a choice too, Mr. Zhang cleared his throat. Linwan, it's true that you decided to jump off the bus. That's not Qingwan's fault. She was just trying to help everyone relax. But now you're making a big scene in front of the staff here. Do you want to get a record? I looked at him. I had always respected Mr. Zhang. He had taught me for 3 years. But now, standing there, defending Qingwan while I bled on the floor, I realized he had never been on my side. She stopped the bus driver when I jumped, I said quietly. She didn't tell him to stop. She didn't ask if I was okay, she told him to keep going. You can check the bus's GPS and engine log. Shinchingwan's face flickered. She hadn't expected me to know that. The woman at the counter had been watching. She slowly set down the stamp and said, we can request the bus company to provide logs, but that would take time. Good, I said. I have time. I'm already registered. Shinchingwan's mother grabbed her shoulder and leaned close to her ear. Where is the other document? She hissed. The one you prepared. I heard it. My ears were sharper now. Death made you pay attention. Shinchingwan's hand went to her pocket. She pulled out a folded piece of paper, and I recognized it instantly. My fake admission ticket, the one she had used last time to impersonate me. She unfolded it and handed it to Mr. Zhang. I don't know why Linwan is accusing me, she said, her voice sweet again, but I have my own registration slip. I was going to submit it after the event. I didn't know she would run off like this. I was worried about Her, so I came here to check. Mr. Zhang looked at the paper. This looks correct, he said slowly. It's not, I said. That's a forgery. She printed it herself. It has the wrong ID number and the wrong registration code. Shin Qingwan's mother grabbed my arm. Don't you dare, you little liar. You're just jealous of my daughter. I pulled my arm back. I'm not jealous. I have the real document, which I just submitted. And I have proof of her forgery. The room went quiet. The woman at the counter asked, what proof? I wasn't bluffing. Before I left for the bus that morning, I had done something I never thought I'd need to do. I had taken photos of everything in my backpack, including my real admission ticket, and I had checked the desk in the classroom where Shin Qingwan used to sit during study hall. Last time, I had found a hidden USB drive in that desk after she left. This time, I had recovered it the day before. Her school computer folder has a template for forged documents, I said, including a blank admission ticket with my name and her photo. I saw it yesterday. You can check the school's computer logs. Shin Qingwan's face went white. Her mother said, that's a lie. Call the school IT department. I said, they'll know. Mr. Zhang hesitated. He looked at Shin Qingwan, then at me. For the first time, I saw doubt in his eyes. I'll call, he said quietly. Shin Qingwan's mother started screaming. You can't do this. We donated to this school. My husband works with the board, but Mr. Zhang was already dialing. I stood there, blood drying on my knee, watching Shin Qingwan's mask crack, piece by piece, and I finally understood. This time, I was not the victim, I was the witness, and the truth was the only weapon I needed. The phone call lasted 7 minutes. Mr. Zhang stepped outside the registration office, his voice low and muffled through the glass door. I could see his face through the window. He frowned, nodded, frowned again. Shin Qingwan's mother paced in front of the counter like a trapped animal. Shin Qingwan stood still, her eyes fixed on the floor. She didn't look at me. I leaned against the wall, my leg shaking. The adrenaline was fading, and the pain was returning. I had run 9 kilometers on a wounded leg. I had bled on the floor. I had screamed my name at a counter, and now, I was waiting for a phone call to decide my future. But I had already decided my future the moment I jumped. The door opened. Mr. Zhang walked back in, his face heavy. The school IT department confirmed it, he said. The file was created 3 days ago. It was stored on a USB drive registered to the school library computer that Shin Qingwan used during study hall on Tuesday. The file contains a forged admission ticket with Lin Wan's name and Shin Qingwan's photo. Shin Qingwan's mother stopped pacing. That's impossible. Qingwan would never do that. The logs don't lie, Mr. Zhang said. The file was created at 4:32 p.m. The USB was registered to student Shin Qingwan. The printer log also shows that a document matching the description was printed at 4:38 p.m., and we have 3 witnesses who saw you at the printer station in the library that day. Shin Qingwan's face was completely white. I had never seen her like this. She was always so controlled, so perfect, so untouchable, but now, she looked like a statue that had been cracked by a hammer. Qingwan, Mr. Zhang said, his voice disappointed. Tell me this isn't true. She didn't answer. Her mother grabbed her arm. Say something. Shin Qingwan opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The woman at the counter looked at me. You were right. The document she submitted is fraudulent. It won't be accepted. Shin Qingwan's mother turned to me, her eyes burning. You set her up. You planted that file. You did this to ruin her. No, I said calmly. I didn't. She did it herself. I just found it. I just waited. Why would you do this? Shin Qingwan whispered, finally looking at me. I looked at that face. The face that had smiled while I jumped off a bus. The face that had laughed while they took selfies on the rooftop. The face that had watched me die in a previous life. Because you tried to steal my future, I said. That's not true. You tried to steal my admission, my identity, my life. She shook her head, tears starting to fall. I didn't mean to, but I didn't let her finish. You tried to steal my death, I said. The room fell silent. Shin Qingwan's mother grabbed her daughter's hand. We're leaving. We're going to contact a lawyer. This is a misunderstanding. Qingwan, let's go. But Shin Qingwan didn't move. She stared at me, her tears silent, her mask completely gone, and I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. Fear, not fear of punishment, fear of being seen. You don't understand, she whispered. I understand everything, I said, and now everyone else will too. The woman at the counter handed me a folder. Your registration is complete, Lin Wan. You'll receive your official exam results and university match in 2 weeks. I took the folder, held it close to my chest, and walked out of the office. Behind me, I heard Shin Qingwan's mother screaming at Mr. Zhang, demanding you fix everything. I heard Shin Qingwan crying. I heard the weight of a life finally breaking. I stepped outside, into the afternoon sun, and took a deep breath. It was the first clean breath I had taken in 2 lives. The first day back at school was quiet. I expected chaos. I expected shouts, whispers, accusations. I expected Shin Qingwan's friends to corner me in the Hallway. I expected the teachers to pull me into an office. I expected my parents to show up, demanding I retract my statement, but none of that happened. When I walked through the school gates that Monday, the hallways were empty. A few students glanced at me, then looked away. The bulletin board was blank. The announcements didn't mention my name. It was a strange kind of silence, not peace, tension. The kind that comes before a storm. I went to my classroom. My desk was still there. Someone had drawn a small red circle on my textbook, a target symbol. I didn't react. I just sat down and opened my book. For the first 3 periods, no one sat next to me, even my deskmate, a quiet boy named Ligia who had always been polite, moved to the back of the room. He didn't look at me. No one looked at me. That was fine. I was used to being invisible. At noon, I went to the cafeteria alone. I sat at a corner table with my tray, and the students around me stood up and moved away, not dramatically. Just quietly, like I had a disease they didn't want to catch. I ate my lunch in peace. At the far end of the cafeteria, I saw Xinqingwan sitting with her usual group, the perfect squad. She was laughing at something, her voice loud and confident again. The mask was back on, but I saw her hands. They were shaking, she knew, and that knowledge kept me calm. In the afternoon, I had a meeting with the school counselor, a routine check-in. They called it. The counselor, a middle-aged woman named Ms. Wu, asked if I was adjusting well. I told her I was fine. She didn't believe me. Some of the other students have expressed concerns about your behavior, she said carefully. They said you left the school trip without warning, that you made accusations. I left the trip to register for my exam results, I said, which was my right. The accusations were based on evidence, which the IT department confirmed. Ms. Wu nodded slowly. Yes, but some students feel that you handled the situation aggressively. I didn't answer. Linwan, is there anything you want to talk about? I looked at her. She seemed genuine, but I had learned not to trust teachers. They always chose the side that made their job easier. No, I said, I'm fine. She let me go that evening. I received the first set of messages. They came from a blocked number, screenshots of my face edited onto different bodies, a photo of my parents' house, a threat, drop the case, or we'll make your family pay. I deleted them. Without replying that night, I sat on my bed, scrolling through my phone. The class group chat was active. They were planning a celebration party for after the exam results. I was not invited. No one said it out loud. They just didn't include me in the list. I turned off my phone and lay back. In my past life, this silence would have crushed me. I would have cried. I would have apologized. I would have begged them to include me, but now, I understood something. Silence was not rejection. Silence was surrender. They had nothing to say to me because I had already won, and they knew it. I closed my eyes and let myself sleep. I had 2 weeks until the exam results were released, 2 weeks until the final truth, and I was ready. On Wednesday, I came home to find my mother sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook and a calculator. She didn't look up when I walked in. She just said, "Your father and I need to talk to you." I stopped in the hallway. My backpack felt heavier. I had been avoiding this conversation for almost a week. My parents knew about the incident at the registration office. They had heard from the school. They had probably heard from Xinqingwan's family too. I walked into the kitchen and sat across from her. "Your teacher called," my mother said, still not looking at me. "He said you accused one of your classmates of forging documents." I didn't deny it. She did forge documents. That's not the point. My mother finally looked up. Her eyes were tired. The point is, you've made a scene. Now the school is investigating. Xinqingwan's family is very upset. They have connections. Your father could lose his job. I stared at her. "So you think I should have just let her steal my identity?" "I think you should have handled it differently," she said coldly. "You could have told us. We could have dealt with it privately, but you had to be dramatic. You had to jump off a bus and run through the city and make a show of it." I had to register for the exam, I said. The deadline was that day. She planned everything so I would miss it. My mother's lips tightened. "That sounds paranoid." "It's not paranoid. I have evidence. Evidence doesn't matter when the other family can afford to fight back." I felt something in my chest go cold. "So you want me to drop it?" She didn't answer. I stood up. "I'm not dropping it. She tried to steal my life, and I'm not going to let her get away with it." "Linwan," my mother called as I turned to leave, "you're being selfish. Think about your brother. Think about this family." I stopped. I turned around. "I am thinking about myself," I said quietly. For the first time in my life, I walked out of the kitchen and went to my room. I locked the door. I sat on my bed and opened my phone. Still no messages from my father. He never got involved. He always let her handle it, because he didn't care either. I had grown up believing I was the problem, that if I was better, quieter, more successful, they would love me. I had spent 17 years trying to be perfect so they would notice me. But last week, when I jumped off that bus, I realized something. They had never seen me, they had only seen a resource, and now that I was fighting back, I was no longer useful. That night, I sent a message to Liu, the only friend from my past life who tried to help me. I asked her to meet me at school the next day. She replied immediately, "I'm with you." 2 words. That was all I needed. The morning air was cold and wet, the kind of damp that seeps into your bones before you even step outside. I hadn't slept. My phone buzzed with a single notification, Liu's reply from last night, still warm in my chest. "I'm with you." I clung to those 2 words like a lifeline. I slipped out of the house before my mother woke up. She had a habit of pretending the previous night's argument never happened, but I knew she would corner me again before school. I couldn't face that. Not yet. The school gate loomed ahead, gray and indifferent. A cluster of students lingered near the entrance, there. Whispers sharp as broken glass. A few of them glanced at me, then looked away. Word had spread. Linwan, the girl who jumped off a bus and ran through the city, the girl who dared to accuse Xinqingwan of forgery. I kept my head down and walked faster. The investigation had begun in earnest yesterday afternoon. The principal, a soft-bellied man named Mr. Tang, had called Xinqingwan and me into his office separately. I had shown him the screenshots I'd kept, the altered registration portal, timestamp discrepancies, the email log that showed my account being accessed from an IP address registered to Xinqingwan's father's company. Mr. Tang's face had gone pale. He promised a full inquiry, but promises are cheap in a school where the Shin family donated the new library. I found Liu waiting for me near the lockers. She was shorter than me, with sharp eyes and a permanent scowl that hid the loyalty of a guard dog. She handed me a cup of hot tea without a word. "You look like you fought a ghost," she said quietly. Close enough. I took the tea, the warmth spread through my fingers. "Did you hear anything? The whole school's buzzing. Xinqingwan's been crying in the bathroom all morning. Poor rich girl, falsely accused. How dare that jealous peasant Linwan attack her reputation?" Liu's voice dripped with sarcasm. "She's already spun the narrative. You're the bitter scholarship kid who can't handle competition." I bit my lip. "I have evidence. Doesn't matter. Evidence is only as strong as the people willing to believe it." Liu grabbed my arm, but someone else came forward. "That's why I had to see you before first period." My heart stopped. "Who?" Chin Lily, the quiet girl in the back row, the one who never spoke, never raised her hand, never made eye contact. She was the daughter of the Shin family's housekeeper. If anyone knew the truth, it would be her. "She emailed the investigation committee this morning," Liu whispered. "Said she saw Xinqingwan using your login credentials on the night before the deadline. She has screenshots from the family computer." I felt the air leave my lungs. Why would she do that? She works for them. Her mother would lose her job, because she's tired of watching that family ruin people. Liu's eyes were fierce. "She came to me first. She wants to talk to you alone." The warning bell rang. Students began to drift toward their classrooms. I stood frozen, the tea growing cold in my hands. "Where?" I asked. "Behind the gymnasium, 3rd period." "She's faking sick to avoid pee." I nodded. My throat was dry. "Do you trust her?" Liu paused. "I trust that she has nothing to gain from lying, and everything to lose by telling the truth. That's the kind of person you want as a witness." I turned to go, but Liu caught my sleeve. "One more thing. The school board has already contacted Xinqingwan's father. He's flying in from Beijing tomorrow. This is going to get very ugly. Very fast. Are you sure you want to do this?" I looked at her. In my previous life, the life I had somehow been given a second chance to change, I had backed down. I had let them crush me. I had apologized to Xinqingwan in front of the whole school, and my mother had smiled with relief. I had spent the next 10 years drowning in regret, but I had jumped off that bus. I had run through the city. I had already burned the bridge. "I'm sure," I said. 3rd period came too slowly and too fast. I slipped out of biology class, citing a bathroom emergency, and made my way to the back of the gymnasium. The air smelled of rubber and dust. Chin Lily was already there, hunched against the wall, her hands shaking. She was a thin girl with hollow cheeks and eyes that had seen too much. Her school uniform was faded, patched at the knees. She looked up as I approached, and I saw raw fear in her face. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "Thank you for what you're doing." I sat down beside her, keeping a careful distance. "Liu said you have evidence." Chin Lily nodded. She pulled out her phone and showed me a screen recording, time-stamped, dated the night before the registration deadline. The video showed Xinqingwan sitting at a laptop, smiling as she typed in my student ID and password. The audio was clear. "There, now Linwan's spot is mine. She'll miss the exam, and I'll get her scholarship." My hands trembled. "This was the smoking gun. Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice barely A whisper, you know what they'll do to your family. Chin Lily looked down. My mother has been their housekeeper for 12 years. She cleans their toilets, washes their clothes, raises their children, and they treat her like furniture. Her voice cracked. Last month, Shin Qingwan accused her of stealing a bracelet. My mother cried for 3 days. She didn't steal anything. The bracelet was in the trash. Shin Qingwan had thrown it out by accident. But no one apologized. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I've been collecting evidence for 2 years. I knew I'd need it someday, I just didn't know when. She looked up at me, and now there was steel in her gaze. When I saw you run off that bus, I knew today was the day. I reached out and took her hand. It was cold and small. Then we'll do this together, I said. She smiled, a fragile, broken thing. Together. A noise echoed from the gymnasium entrance. Footsteps, voices. Someone was coming. Chin Lily's face went white. They can't see me here. If Shin Qingwan's friends find out, go, I said. I'll handle it. She scrambled away, disappearing behind a stack of old wrestling mats. I stood up, brushing the dust from my skirt, and turned to face the intruder. It wasn't Shin Qingwan's friends, it was my mother. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her face a mask of controlled fury. Beside her was Shin Qingwan's personal lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who looked at me like I was a stain on his shoe. Lin Wan. My mother said, her voice ice, we need to talk, right now. Behind them, the school intercom crackled to life. Lin Wan, please report to the principal's office immediately. Lin Wan to the principal's office. The investigation was about to go public. The principal's office had been transformed. What was once a cramped room with a dusty desk and a wilting plant now contained a long table, 5 chairs, and a video camera on a tripod. The school board had arrived in force, 3 men in suits, 1 woman with sharp glasses, and Shin Qingwan's lawyer, Mr. Gua, a predator in wool and silk. My mother sat in the corner, arms crossed, radiating disapproval. She hadn't spoken a word to me since dragging me out of the gymnasium. Shin Qingwan was already there, seated beside her lawyer, looking pale and fragile. She wore a white blouse and no makeup, calculated innocence. When I walked in, she glanced at me, then looked away as if I were beneath her notice. I took the empty chair across from her. Mr. Tang, the principal, stood at the head of the table, sweating through his collar. Let's begin, said the woman on the board, whose nameplate read Director Su. Her voice was calm, clinical. This is an informal investigation hearing, no legal binding, but the findings will be submitted to the Ministry of Education. We are here to determine whether student Shin Qingwan knowingly engaged in academic fraud by tampering with student Lin Wan's exam registration. Shin Qingwan's lawyer leaned forward. Objection. The accusation is baseless and defamatory. My client has no motive to harm Ms. Lin's registration. They are classmates and, until recently, friends. I bit my tongue. Friends. That was a joke. Let's start with the evidence. Director Su said, Ms. Lin, you submitted screenshots showing that your account was accessed from an IP address belonging to Shin Enterprises at 11:47 p.m. on the night before the registration deadline. Can you confirm? Yes, I said. I also have a witness. Shin Qingwan's eyes flickered. I held her gaze. A witness. Mr. Gua's smile was thin. And who might that be? I took a breath. Chin Lily. She has a screen recording of Shin Qingwan accessing my account. The room went still. Shin Qingwan's mask cracked. Just for a second, a flash of panic before she recovered. That's absurd, she said, her voice trembling with practiced hurt. Chin Lily's mother works for my family. She's clearly biased. She's trying to extort us. She has no reason to lie, I said. She has every reason to lie, Mr. Gua countered. The Shin family pays her mother's salary. If she's unhappy, she could fabricate evidence to harm my client's reputation. Director Su frowned. We cannot call a witness who is not present. Ms. Lin, where is Chin Lily? I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could speak, the door opened. Chin Lily walked in. She was trembling, but her head was high. In her hands, she held a folder, the same one from the gymnasium. She had changed. She had put on her best uniform, the one she saved for graduation ceremonies. I'm here, she said, her voice clear. I have the evidence. Shin Qingwan's face drained of color. Mr. Gua stood up. This is irregular. The witness should have been vetted before. Sit down, Mr. Gua, Director Su said, her tone sharp. Let the girl speak. Chin Lily walked to the table and placed the folder in front of Director Su. Inside was a USB drive and several printed screenshots. That recording, she said, pointing, was made on my personal phone. You can check the metadata. It shows Shin Qingwan logging into Lin Wan's account using a password she had copied from the school's internal system. I heard her bragging about it to her friends the next day. Shin Qingwan's composure shattered. You liar. You stole that from my house. You're just a maid's daughter. The room went quiet. The contempt in her voice hung in the air like smoke. Director Su's eyes narrowed. Ms. Shin, did you just refer to this witness as a maid's daughter? Shin Qingwan opened her mouth. Then Shut it. Her lawyer put a hand on her arm, but the damage was done. That's enough, Director Su said. We will review the evidence. In the meantime, Ms. Shin, you are suspended from all academic activities pending the outcome of this investigation, and Ms. Lin, your registration will be restored retroactively. You will be allowed to sit for the exam. I felt a wave of relief so strong it almost buckled my knees, but Shin Qingwan was not done. She stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. This isn't over. My father will hear about this. He will destroy this school if he has to. Then let him try, I said, and my voice didn't shake. She stared at me, and for the first time, I saw real hatred in her eyes. Then she turned and walked out, followed by her lawyer. My mother rose from her corner. She looked at me, and something in her expression shifted. Not warmth, not pride, but a grudging respect. You've made enemies, she said. I know. Your father will lose his job. I know, she paused, then, very slowly, she nodded. I won't stand in your way anymore. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't love, but it was a start. I turned to Chen Lily. She was crying, silently, tears streaming down her face. I took her hand. Thank you, I whispered. We're not done yet, she said. Shin Qingwan won't give up, and there's something else. She leaned in close, her voice barely audible. I heard her on the phone last night. She said she's planning something for the exam day, something that we'll make sure you never walk into that exam hall. My blood ran cold. Then we'll be ready, I said, but deep in my chest, a warning bell was ringing. This was far from over that night. I couldn't sleep. The dormitory walls were thin enough that I could hear the muffled sobs of a first-year student down the hall, someone else caught in the wreckage of Shin Qingwan's empire. My phone buzzed every few minutes, but I ignored it. Unknown numbers, threatening texts, even a voicemail from an untraceable number that said, drop out. Or your mother's shop burns down, I deleted it without playing it a second time. Chen Lily had stayed with me until midnight, whispering plans over cold tea. She knew the terrain of the university better than anyone. She had cleaned every floor, filed every record, lied for every favor, and now she was using that knowledge for us. Shin Qingwan will use her father's influence to place security guards at every entrance, she had said, tracking the path with her finger on a napkin. The main gate, the sports hall, the library, but there's a side door near the old boiler room. It's been locked for years, but I have a key. How did you get it? She had smiled. A thin, bitter thing. I cleaned the janitor's office. He didn't notice it missing for a week, and by then, he thought he'd just lost it. I had stared at her. You've been planning this for a long time. Yes, her voice had been flat. I knew one day I'd need a way in, or a way out. Now, alone in the dark, I turned those words over in my mind. Chen Lily had been a ghost in this university for 4 years. Everyone saw her uniform, her mop, her silence. No one saw her watching. No one saw her waiting. I didn't know if I could trust her completely, but I had no one else. At 2:17 a.m., I made a decision. I got up, pulled on a dark hoodie, and slipped out of the dormitory. The campus was quiet under a half-moon, the kind of silence that felt like a held breath. I kept to the shadows, my heart pounding against my ribs, until I reached the old administrative building where Director Su's office was. I didn't knock. I used the emergency code Chen Lily had given me, a 6-digit number that had once belonged to a scholarship fund, now repurposed for after-hours access. The lock clicked open. Inside, the smell of stale coffee and old paper. I moved quickly to Director Su's desk, pulled open the bottom drawer where I had seen her file cabinet key. It was still there. I unlocked the cabinet, found the folder marked Shin Qingwan, Academic Misconduct Investigation, and slid out the contents. I didn't need to steal anything, I just needed to take photos. But when I opened the folder, I froze. There were screenshots, transcripts, emails, and at the very bottom, a single photograph, yellowed, creased, dated 10 years ago. It showed a young girl in a cheap school uniform, standing next to a woman with a mop. The girl was Chen Lily. The woman was her mother, and behind them, in the corner of the frame, was a teenage boy with a familiar smirk, Shin Qingwan's older brother, who had died in a car accident 5 years ago. I stared at the photograph, my mind racing. What did this have to do with the case? Why was it in this folder? A sound behind me. I spun around, heart in my throat. The door was still closed. The hallway was empty, but I could feel it. Someone watching. I shoved the folder back, locked the cabinet, and slipped out into the night. As I ran back to the dormitory, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just opened a door that should have stayed shut. The next morning, Chen Lily was waiting for me at breakfast. She looked paler than usual, dark circles under her eyes. Did you sleep? I asked. No. She pushed a cup of tea toward me. I went to the hospital. My mother is worse. I'm sorry. Don't be. She's the reason I'm doing this. She worked for Shin Qingwan's family for 15 years. She knows secrets, but she's too scared to speak. I thought of the photograph. What kind of secrets, Chen Lily looked around, then leaned forward. Shin Qingwan's brother. He didn't die in an accident, he was murdered. The word hit me like a slap. What? I don't have proof, but my mother was there the night it happened. She saw Shin Qingwan's father arguing with him. The next morning, the car was found at the bottom of a ravine. They said it was a drunk driving accident, but my mother said the boy didn't drink. He was terrified of his father. I set down my tea, my hands suddenly cold. Why didn't she go to the police? Because Shin Qingwan's father owns the police, or he did, back then. Now he's a senator, he's untouchable. She met my eyes. But you're different, you have nothing to lose, and you already made an enemy of him. I wanted to deny it, but she was right. The moment I stood up in that hearing, I had signed a death warrant for my family's safety. What do you want me to do? I asked. Expose him. Use the hearing, leak it to the press. I have more evidence, bank records, phone logs, a witness who saw the argument, but I need you to be the voice, because no one will believe a maid's daughter. The title hung in the air between us, maid's daughter, the same words Shin Qingwan had spat at her in the hearing. I believe you, I said. Chin Lily's eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears away. Then we have a deal. I get you into the exam hall, and you help me bury the Shin family for good. I nodded, but even as we shook hands, I knew the real battle hadn't started yet. The exam was in 3 days, 3 days to prepare, 3 days to survive. That afternoon, I went to find my father. He was at the construction site where he worked, covered in dust and sweat. When he saw me, his face went through a dozen emotions in 2 seconds: anger, worry, relief, then anger again. You shouldn't be here, he said, pulling me aside. The foreman already told me. I'm fired. I know. I'm sorry. He rubbed his face with a dirty hand. Your mother called. She said you went to the hearing, said you made a scene. I had to. His voice cracked. Linwan, do you understand what you've done? Shin Qingwan's father is a senator. He can destroy our entire family, your mother's shop, your brother's job, my pension, everything. I understand. Then why? He was almost shouting now. Why couldn't you just let it go? The exam, you could have taken it next year. You could have transferred. You could have survived. Because surviving isn't living, I said quietly, and I'm tired of living like a ghost in my own life. He stared at me. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. Then he sagged, the anger draining out of him. Your mother told me she's letting you do this. Yes, she's a fool, and so am I. He looked down at his hands. I'll talk to the union. Maybe they can find me another job, but I need you to promise me something. What? If it gets too dangerous? If you feel like you're going to lose, you run, and you don't look back. Understand? I understand, but I didn't mean it. I wasn't going to run, not anymore. That night, Chin Lily and I met in the boiler room. She had a map of the campus spread out on a crate, marking every security camera, every guard post, every locked door. The exam starts at 8 a.m., she said, but the gates open at 6:30. Shin Qingwan's father has hired private security to patrol the main entrance. They have photos of you. They will stop you on sight, so I don't use the main entrance. Right, you use this. She tapped a point on the map. The old boiler room exit, leading to a service alley behind the sports hall. The door hasn't been used in 3 years, the lock is rusty, but the key should still work. I'll be here at 6 a.m. to open it. You'll have exactly 12 minutes to cross the alley, enter the sports hall through the emergency exit, and take the stairs to the exam hall on the 2nd floor. That's the only route that avoids the security cameras. What about the guards? There's one guard on the 2nd floor. He's new. He doesn't know your face, but he'll check your ID card. You need a valid student ID, not the temporary one. Shin Qingwan destroyed my original ID. Chin Lily smiled. I know, that's why I made you a new one. She pulled out a card from her pocket. It looked exactly like the university-issued IDs. My photo, my name, my student number, but the hologram was slightly off. It's a forgery, I said. The best I could do with a printer in the janitor's closet. It should pass a quick glance, but if the guard looks too closely, you're done. I took the card. It felt solid in my hand. Real. Why are you risking so much for me? I asked. Chin Lily's expression flickered. Because you're the first person who looked at me and didn't see a maid's daughter. You saw a witness. You saw a friend. I wanted to say something. Thank her. Hug her. Promise her the world. But instead I just nodded, because words felt too small. We spent the next 2 nights in that boiler room, rehearsing the route. I timed myself. 12 minutes was tight. One wrong turn and I'd be caught. One guard looking the wrong way and the whole plan collapsed. On the night before the exam, my mother called. Your father lost his job, she said, but he found something temp. It's less money, but we'll manage. I know, he told me. There was a pause, then her voice, softer than I had ever heard it. Linwan, I was wrong, about Shin Qingwan, about everything. I thought if I kept my head down, I could protect you, but I see now. That I was just teaching you to be afraid. It's okay, Mom. It's not okay, but I want you to know. I'm proud of you. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm proud. I had to choke back a sob. Thank you. Go get your dreams, Linwan, and don't let anyone steal them again. I hung up and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in months, I felt something I had almost forgotten. Hope. But hope didn't change the fact that the next morning, I would be running through a campus full of enemies, and Chingwan was planning something that would make sure I never walked into that exam hall. I just didn't know what. At 5:30 a.m., I woke up. Dawn was still gray, the air cold and damp. I put on a pair of nondescript clothes, dark jeans, a plain jacket, a baseball cap pulled low. I tucked the forged ID into my sock, just in case. Chin Lily was waiting at the boiler room door. She had a crowbar in her hand, and her face was tense. "There's a problem," she said. My heart dropped. "What?" "The security patrols have increased. There are 2 guards stationed at the sports hall now, one at the front, one at the emergency exit. I didn't account for that. Then the plan is dead." "No." She handed me a key. "There's another route, through the underground tunnel. It connects the old maintenance shed to the exam hall basement. The tunnel floods during heavy rain, but it's been dry for a week. You'll have to crawl through about 50 meters of mud, but it's your only way." I stared at the key. "How do you know about this?" "I cleaned the maintenance shed. The janitor told me it was a secret passage used during the Cultural Revolution to hide documents. No one uses it now." I took the key. It was cold, rusted, and heavier than it looked. "You'll need to go now," she said. "The guards change at 7 a.m. You have a window of 8 minutes. I hugged her. "I'll see you on the other side. Be careful, Linwan." Chingwan hasn't made a move yet. That means she's waiting. I nodded and slipped out into the dawn. The maintenance shed was a crumbling building behind the chemistry block. The door was padlocked, but the key opened it with a groan of reluctant metal. Inside, the floor was covered in dust and broken glass. In the corner, a metal grate covered a hole in the ground. I pulled it open. A dark shaft descended into the earth. I could smell damp soil and something metallic, rust, maybe, or old pipes. I didn't have time to be afraid. I lowered myself into the hole, feet first, and let go. I landed hard on wet ground. The tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough for my shoulders. I had to crawl on my hands and knees, the mud soaking through my jeans. The darkness was absolute. I could only feel forward, inch by inch, my breath loud in the confined space. I counted my moves, 20, 30, 50. My palms were raw, my knees ached, but I kept going. Then I heard something up ahead, a voice. No, not a voice. A sound, like someone dragging something heavy. I froze. The tunnel dead-ended, or was there someone else down here? I pressed myself against the wall, trying to be silent. The sound grew closer, a scraping, a shuffling, then a light flickered, the beam of a flashlight. "Come out, Linwan," a voice said. It was female, cold, familiar. "Chingwan, I knew you'd try the tunnel. Chin Lily isn't the only one who knows this campus. I've had my people watching the maintenance shed for 3 days." I didn't answer. My mind raced. The tunnel was supposed to be secret. How did she know? "You think you're clever," Chingwan continued. "You think a maid's daughter and a dead girl can beat me. My father owns the city. He owns the police. He owns the university. You'll never make it to the exam hall." I felt for the key in my pocket, still there, but what good was it if she was blocking the exit? Then I remembered Chin Lily's words. The tunnel floods during heavy rain, but it's been dry for a week. Heavy rain. It hadn't rained in days, but what if I could make it flood? I scrambled backward, feeling for a pipe or a valve. My hand hit a metal wheel, an old water shut-off valve. I twisted it with all my strength. It screeched but turned. A terrible groaning sound echoed through the tunnel. Then water, muddy, cold water, gushed from somewhere above. Chingwan screamed. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. I just kept twisting. The water rose fast. It reached my waist, my chest. I was swimming now, the current pulling me toward the exit, and toward Chingwan. I could see her flashlight flickering, her face twisted in rage and fear. "You'll drown us both," she shouted. "Then you should have stayed above ground." I let go of the valve and let the current carry me. The water slammed into Chingwan, knocking her flashlight away. In the darkness, I grabbed her wrist, not to hurt her, but to use her as a shield. I pushed past her, toward the grate at the end of the tunnel. I found the ladder, climbed it, and emerged into the basement of the exam hall. I was soaked, covered in mud, and my heart was pounding like a drum, but I was here. I checked my watch. 6:58 a.m. The exam started in 1 hour. I didn't have time to change. I wrung out my shirt, wiped the mud off my face, and ran up the stairs. The exam hall was a large auditorium with rows of desks. Students were already filing in, wearing crisp uniforms, carrying brand new calculators. I must have looked like a disaster, but the proctor didn't stop me. He just glanced at my ID, the forged one, and waved me through. I took my See, and then the clock started ticking. I picked up my pen, my hand was steady behind me. I heard the door open, a commotion, voices, then Shin Ching-won's voice, loud and frantic. That girl, she attacked me, she tried to drown me in the tunnel, she should be arrested. The exam hall went silent. The proctor looked at me, then at her. Miss Shin, if you have a complaint, please take it to the administration, she doesn't belong here. Her ID is fake. The proctor sighed, walked over to my desk. May I see your identification again? I handed it over. He examined it, then he looked at Shin Ching-won, who was still dripping wet, her expensive clothes ruined. The ID appears valid, he said, and the exam has begun. Miss Shin, please take your seat or leave the hall. Shin Ching-won's face went red. You'll regret this, all of you. She turned and stormed out. I took a deep breath. The exam was 4 hours long. I had studied for this moment for 2 years. I had lost friends, family, and almost my sanity, but sitting there, pen in hand, I felt a strange calm. I was going to pass, I was going to win, and then I would burn Shin Ching-won's family to the ground. The exam ended at noon. I handed in my paper, my fingers cramping from writing so fast. Every word I had poured onto the page felt like a piece of my soul. Hours of stolen study, nights of relentless pressure, the weight of a family's hope. I walked out of the hall into the blinding sunlight. Chin Lily was waiting for me under a tree, her face pale with anxiety. You made it, she breathed. We're halfway there. I looked around. Any trouble? Shin Ching-won was arrested. I stopped. What? After she left the exam hall, she went straight to her father's office, but someone had leaked the recording of the hearing to the press. It's all over the news. Senator's daughter calls witness a maid's daughter, caught on tape. Her father is in damage control. He's trying to distance himself from her. I felt a surge of disbelief. Who leaked it? Chin Lily smiled. I did. I sent it to every journalist in the city last night. I had it on my phone. I stared at her. You did that. I told you I had a plan. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded newspaper. The headline read, Senator's daughter caught in academic fraud scandal. University suspends investigation. This isn't over, I said, but it's a start. There's more. Chin Lily's voice dropped. I got a call this morning. A lawyer contacted me. He says he represents anonymous donors who want to fund a full investigation into the Shin family's financial crimes. They've been looking for a whistleblower, and they think you're it. I blinked. Why me? Because you're the first person who ever fought back, and people have noticed. I didn't know what to say. My whole life, I had been invisible, a shadow, a girl who kept her head down and survived, and now I was someone. I need to call my parents, I said. Do it later. There's something else. She handed me a small thumb drive. This is a copy of the evidence my mother collected over 15 years, bank statements, recorded calls, photographs, everything that links Shin Ching-won's father to the death of his son, to the cover-up of the accident, to the bribes that got his daughter into university. I took the drive. It felt impossibly light for something so heavy. What do I do with it? You give it to the right people. The news is one thing, but this is a bomb. I nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me, just don't let her win. I spent the next few days in a blur. The university reinstated my registration permanently. Director Su issued a public apology, not to me, but to the integrity of the academic process. It wasn't personal, but it was something. My father found a new job, a small construction crew that didn't ask questions. My mother's shop saw a sudden increase in customers. Some were curious, some were supportive. She didn't know how to handle the attention. But she didn't complain, and I studied, because even with all the chaos, the national exam was only the first step. I needed to get into a good university. I needed to prove that I wasn't just a survivor, I was a winner. But Shin Ching-won wasn't done. I knew that the day I saw a black sedan parked outside my dormitory. 2 men in suits sat inside, watching the building. I didn't tell Chin Lily. I didn't want to worry her. Instead, I made a plan. I went to the library and used a public computer to send an encrypted email to the lawyer who had contacted Chin Lily. I attached a copy of the thumb drive, but not the whole thing, just enough to prove I had it. Asterisk, if something happens to me, asterisk, I wrote, the full file will be released to every news outlet in the world. I have a dead man's switch. I didn't actually have one, but they didn't need to know that. The next morning, the black sedan was gone. I knew I had bought time, but time was all I needed. 3 weeks later, the results of the national exam were released. I sat in my dormitory, refreshing the page on my phone, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The screen loaded. My name, Lin Won, score, 723 out of 750, top 1% in the country. I stared at the numbers, then I started laughing, hysterical, tear-streaked, ugly laughter that turned into sobbing. I had done it. I had made it. The phone rang. It was Chin Lily. Did you see? I saw. You're going to Peking University. We're going to Peking University. There was a pause, then she whispered, I didn't take the exam. What? I couldn't afford to. I had to work, but I don't mind. I have a plan. I'm going to use the lawyer's money to start a foundation for kids like us, kids who get trapped by people like the Shins. I felt a pang of guilt. You should have told me. You had enough to worry about. And this is what I want. I want to make sure no one else has to go through what we went through. You're amazing, Chin Lily. So are you, Lin Wan. Now go, pack your bags, university starts in 2 months. I hung up and looked out the window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the campus. In the distance, I could see the exam hall, the building where I had fought and won, but I knew the real fight was just beginning. Shin Qingwan's father had been arrested for bribery and obstruction of justice. The investigation was still ongoing. There were rumors that he might flee the country. There were also rumors that he would kill anyone who testified against him. I was on the witness list. The night before I left for Beijing, a package arrived at my dormitory, no return address. Inside was a single photograph, the same one I had seen in Director Su's file, Chin Lily and her mother, with Shin Qingwan's brother in the background, but this time, someone had circled the face of the brother on the back, in red ink, asterisk, he didn't die in an accident, he was pushed, and someone saw. Asterisk, I turned the photograph over and over, there was no signature, no clue, but I knew who had sent it. The next morning, I boarded the train to Beijing. I sat by the window, watching the city shrink into the distance. I had a new phone, a new address, and a new life waiting for me, but I also had a dead man's switch, a folder full of evidence, and a promise to a dead boy I had never met. I was going to be a student, but first, I was going to be a weapon. Section 7, the weight of a name. The train rattled northward through the night, carrying me away from everything I had ever known. I sat with my back against the cold window, the photograph tucked inside my jacket pocket, pressed against my heart like a second skin, the dead man's switch, the encrypted file I had set to auto-publish if I failed to check in every 72 hours, was already configured. If I died, the world would know everything. If I lived, I would decide when to pull the trigger. I had not slept in 36 hours. The compartment was nearly empty, an old woman in the corner seat knitted by the dim light, her needles clicking like the ticking of a bomb. A young man across from me scrolled through his phone, the blue glow illuminating his tired face. None of them looked at me. None of them knew that the girl in the plain gray jacket was carrying enough evidence to bring down a dynasty. The Shin family was not just wealthy, they were a web, a network of judges, police captains, land developers, and politicians that stretched across 3 provinces. Shin Qingwan's father, Shin Guowei, had been arrested, but his brother, Shin Guowa, was still free, and Shin Guowa controlled the southern ports. He had friends in customs, in the procuracy, in the military. I had no idea how deep the rot went, but I knew one thing: someone had sent me that photograph, someone inside the system, someone who wanted me to know that the brother's death had not been an accident. And if that person was willing to reach out to a 17-year-old girl, they must be desperate, or they were setting me up. The train arrived in Beijing at dawn. The station was enormous, a cathedral of glass and steel, filled with the noise of announcements, rolling suitcases, and crying children. I stepped onto the platform and felt the cold air hit my face. It smelled of coal dust and diesel and possibility. I had never been this far south before. The capital was supposed to be a symbol of opportunity, but to me, it felt like a battlefield. I checked my phone, no messages. I had given Chin Lily my new number, but she said she would contact me only when it was safe. I didn't know what safe meant anymore. The university had arranged for new students to be picked up at the station. I found the Peking University banner, crowded with families and suitcases and proud parents taking photos. I stood alone. No one took my picture. No one hugged me goodbye. A young woman with a clipboard approached me. Lin Wan. I nodded. I'm Zhou Mei, your senior advisor. Welcome to PKU. She smiled warmly, but her eyes were sharp. She glanced at my single duffel bag. Is this all you brought? I travel light. She laughed. You'll need more than that for the Beijing winter. Don't worry, we have a student store. I'll show you around after registration. We walked through the campus, past red brick buildings covered in ivy, past Weiming Lake shimmering under the morning sun. It looked like a postcard, but I couldn't enjoy it. I kept scanning the crowds, looking for faces that didn't belong. Black sedans, men in suits, so far, nothing. Registration took 2 hours. I was assigned to a dormitory in Building 28, a 6-story concrete block that smelled of instant noodles and damp laundry. My roommates had already arrived. One was a tall, confident girl from Shanghai named Wang Su. She wore designer sneakers and spoke with an air of entitlement. Her father was a doctor. Her mother was a lawyer. She had scored 689 on her Gaokao, 4 points lower than me, and she seemed determined to prove she was smarter. The other was A quiet, round-faced girl from rural Gansu named Lu Tong. She had never been outside her province before. She stared at the city lights with wide, terrified eyes. 3 beds, 1 room, 10 square meters of shared space. I chose the top bunk by the window. It gave me a view of the entrance. That night, I lay awake, listening to Wang Su snore and Lu Tong whisper prayers under her breath. The photograph was under my pillow. The dead man's switch was set. I thought about Chen Lily. I thought about the boy in the picture I had never met. I thought about Director Su, who had been transferred to an unknown location for his own safety, and I thought about Shin Qingwan. She had been quiet since her father's arrest. No social media posts, no court appearances. The news said she was under house arrest, but I didn't believe it. The Shin family had too many resources. She could be anywhere. She could be in Beijing. The first week of orientation was a blur of speeches, campus tours, and icebreaker games. I smiled when I was supposed to. I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. I let Wang Su take the lead in group discussions, playing the role of the quiet, unassuming freshman, but I was watching, always watching. On the 3rd day, I found a note slipped under my dormitory door. It was printed on plain white paper, no signature. *, the witness protection program is a lie. They will find you. Run. *. I folded the note and put it in my pocket. I didn't run. I couldn't run. Running would mean giving up the only advantage I had, the dead man's switch. As long as I was alive, the evidence was safe, but if I disappeared, if I stopped checking in, the files would be released to every major news outlet in the country. It was a nuclear option, and I wasn't ready to use it yet. Instead, I started mapping the campus. I found every exit, every blind spot, every security camera. I memorized the patrol schedule of the campus guards. I bought a burner phone and a prepaid SIM card, and I started looking for the person who had sent me the photograph. It was Lu Tong who gave me the first clue. We were eating dinner in the cafeteria, steamed buns and pickled vegetables, when she leaned in and whispered, "There's a man, outside the library. He's been there every day for a week." I didn't look up. What does he look like? Middle-aged, black jacket, he smokes a lot. Yesterday, I saw him take a picture of the East Gate. My heart rate didn't change. I had expected this. Thank you, Lu Tong. Don't follow him, don't talk to him. If he approaches you, tell him you don't know me. She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. She didn't ask questions. She knew better than to ask. After dinner, I walked to the library. I didn't go inside. Instead, I circled the building, staying in the shadows, watching the man from behind a hedge. He was exactly as Lu Tong described. Black jacket, worn leather shoes. He leaned against a lamppost, cigarette burning between his fingers, and stared at the East Gate with the patience of a predator. I took a photo of him with my burner phone, then I sent it to a number I had memorized, the only number I trusted. The reply came 5 minutes later. *, that's Xinguo's right hand, name, Zhao Wei, former military police, 3 arrests for coercion, never convicted, be careful, *. I didn't know who the contact was. I had found them through an encrypted forum frequented by journalists and activists. They had helped me before, verifying the authenticity of the photograph. They never asked for my name. I never asked for but they clearly had access to information that the police didn't. I watched Zhao Wei for another hour. He lit a second cigarette, then a third. He never moved. He was waiting for someone. He was waiting for me. That night, I changed my routine. I ate at different times. I took different paths to class. I never walked alone after dark. And I started carrying a small can of pepper spray that Chen Lily had mailed me before I left, but I also started working. I enrolled in a computer science elective, which gave me access to the university's computer lab. The lab was old, filled with clunky desktops that ran on outdated software, but the network was fast, and the lab was empty at night. I began digging. I searched for records of Xinguo's ports. I traced shell companies through layers of proxies, following the money like a blood trail. It was slow work. I was not a hacker. I was just a girl with time, determination, and a burning need for justice. But I found something, a shipping manifest from 3 years ago, a container labeled construction equipment that had never reached its destination. Instead, it had been rerouted to a private dock owned by a subsidiary of Shin Industries. The contents were listed as metal piping, but the weight didn't match. The container was too heavy. I cross-referenced the date. It was 2 weeks after Shin Qingwan's brother had died. My hands trembled as I saved the file to a USB drive. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew it meant something. On the 10th day, I received a second package. It was delivered to the dormitory office by a courier who didn't remember who had hired him. The package was small, about the size of a book. Inside was a voice recorder and a note, *, the witness is ready to talk. Meet at the South Gate, midnight, come alone, *. It was a trap. I knew it was a trap, but I also knew that the witness, if they existed, could be the key to everything. The person who had seen the brother pushed, the one who had sent the photograph. They had been silent for so long. Why now? Perhaps they knew I was in Beijing. Perhaps they were running out of time. I made a decision. I would go to the meeting, but I would not go alone. I called the only person I could trust, the contact on the forum. I asked for backup. They said they would send someone at 11:45 p.m. I left the dormitory. I wore black clothes. I carried the pepper spray, the USB drive, and my burner phone. I had set the dead man's switch to a 1-hour timer. If I didn't call to reset it by 1 a.m., the files would be released. The campus was quiet. The autumn wind blew through the trees, scattering leaves across the path. The streetlights cast pools of yellow light on the pavement. I walked toward the south gate. I saw a figure standing in the shadows, tall, male. He was wearing a long coat and a hat pulled low over his face. He stepped forward. Linwan. His voice was rough, like gravel. Who are you? Someone who wants to help, but we don't have much time. He glanced over his shoulder. They know you're here. They've been watching you since you arrived. Who? Xinguo's men. Zhao is only the beginning. There are others. They're waiting for you to make a mistake. Why are you helping me? Because I knew the boy, Xinming. He was my student when I taught at the university in Nanjing. He was a good kid. He didn't deserve to die. My breath caught. You were his teacher. I was his ethics professor. He came to me a week before he died. He said he had found something about his family's business. He was scared. I told him to go to the police. The man's voice cracked. The next day, he was dead. Accident, they said. But I knew the truth. Why didn't you come forward? Because I had a family. Because I was a coward. He pulled out an envelope. This is everything I have. Documents, recordings, a sworn statement from the dock worker who saw Xinming being pushed. It's enough to reopen the case. I reached for the envelope, and then I heard the engine. A black van screeched around the corner, headlights blazing, tires screamed on the asphalt. The van skidded to a stop 10 meters away, and 3 men jumped out. The professor grabbed my arm. Run. We ran. We sprinted across the campus lawn, past the library, past the dormitories. The men chased us, their footsteps pounding behind us. I could hear them shouting into radios. The professor was fast for his age. He led me through a narrow alley between 2 buildings, into a maze of maintenance sheds and trash bins. We ducked behind a generator, gasping for air. They'll find us, he whispered. We need to split up. You take the envelope. I'll lead them away. No, you'll be killed. I've already lived with the guilt for 3 years. If I die tonight, at least I die trying to fix what I should have fixed long ago. He shoved the envelope into my hands. Then he stood up and ran in the opposite direction, shouting to draw their attention. I heard the men shout. I heard the sound of a scuffle, then a gunshot. I pressed my hand over my mouth to stop myself from screaming. I waited. I counted seconds. I counted heartbeats. When I was sure they were gone, I crawled out from behind the generator and ran back toward the dormitory. I didn't look back. At 12:58 a.m., I reached my room. I locked the door. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall. The envelope clutched to my chest. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside were photographs, bank statements, a handwritten letter from a dock worker named Li Chang, describing how he had seen Xinguo's brother, Xinguo himself, and a man in a suit push Xinming off the dock into the water. The boy had struggled, the men had laughed, and then they had watched him drown. I cried for Xinming, a boy I had never known. I cried for Chen Lily, who had sacrificed her future to help me. I cried for the professor, who might be dead because of me, and then I stopped crying. I picked up my phone. I called the number. The files are ready. I said, I have a witness statement, I have a confession. The voice on the other end was calm. Hold on to them. The time is not right yet. When will it be right? When you are ready to face what comes next. I hung up. I looked at the envelope. I looked at the photograph of Xinming, his smiling face frozen in time. Then I opened my laptop and began to prepare. The war had begun, but I was no longer just a weapon. I was the hand that wielded it. Section 8. The ghost in the machine. The professor's death made the news the next morning. He was found in a ditch near the university's south wall, shot twice in the chest. The police called it a robbery gone wrong. They said he had been followed by a street gang. They said it was a tragic coincidence. I knew better. They had killed him to silence him, but they had not found the envelope. They had not found the evidence. I spent the next 3 days in a state of hypervigilance. I barely slept. I barely ate. I attended classes mechanically, taking notes I would never read, smiling at jokes I would never remember. Wang Su noticed something was wrong. You look like a ghost, she said one morning. Are you okay? Just jet lag. I lied. She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. She was too busy with her own ambitions, joining the student council, networking with professors, building her resume. Lu Tong, on the other hand, watched me with quiet concern. One evening, she found me sitting alone in the stairwell. The Envelope hidden under my jacket. You're in trouble, she said. It was not a question. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're scared. And you have every right to be. She sat down next to me. I saw the news about the professor. He was at the university, wasn't he, the night he died? I didn't answer. Lin-Wan, I don't know what you're involved in, but I know you're not a bad person. You helped me with my math homework. You shared your food with me when I ran out of money. You don't deserve to be hunted. I felt tears prickling at my eyes. I blinked them back. I can't tell you anything. It's not safe. I don't need you to tell me. I just need you to know that you're not alone. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small keychain. It was a brass compass, tarnished and old. My grandfather gave this to me when I left home. He said it would always point me in the right direction. I want you to have it. I stared at the compass. I can't take this. Yes, you can. You need it more. Then I do. She pressed it into my hand. Promise me you'll find a way out. I looked at her, her round face, her earnest eyes, her trembling smile. I promise, I said. I didn't know if I could keep that promise. That night, I made a decision. I could not stay in the dormitory forever. The Shin's men would find me eventually. I needed to move. I needed to go somewhere they wouldn't expect. I remembered the computer lab. The old desktops, the outdated software. It was the last place anyone would look for a fugitive. I packed my essentials, the envelope, the USB drives, the burner phone, the compass. I left everything else behind. I left a note for Lu Tong, telling her not to worry. I left a fake trail for Wang Su, making it look like I had taken a bus to Tianjin. Then I slipped out the window and disappeared into the night. The computer lab was dark and cold. The janitor had already finished his rounds. I used a lock-picking trick I had learned from a YouTube tutorial, clumsy, but effective, and let myself in. I settled into a corner cubicle, hidden from the windows. I plugged in my USB drive, I opened the files, and I worked. I spent the next 48 hours cross-referencing the shipping manifests with the bank statements. I traced the money through a maze of offshore accounts. I found names, I found dates, I found a pattern. The Shins had been smuggling something out of the country, not drugs, not weapons. Something else, something that required special containers, special permits, special handling. I found a shipment from 3 months ago, a container labeled medical equipment that had been sent to a clinic in a small African nation. The clinic did not exist. The address was a warehouse. I opened a new browser window. I searched for the name of the shipping company. It was owned by a shell corporation. The shell corporation was owned by another shell corporation, and at the top of the chain, hidden behind layers of legal fiction, was a name I recognized. Shin Qingwan. She was not just the daughter of a corrupt businessman, she was the architect. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk, you're getting close. Be careful. They know about the lab. Asterisk. I froze. I looked around the dark room. Was I being watched? I packed my things quickly. I was about to leave when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy footsteps. Multiple people. I ducked under the desk, my heart pounding. The footsteps stopped outside the lab door. A key turned in the lock. The door swung open. A flashlight beam swept across the room. I held my breath, checked the cubicles. A voice said, I heard them moving. I heard them opening cabinets, overturning chairs. Then I saw a shadow fall across my desk. A hand reached down and grabbed my arm. I screamed, but the hand was gentle. A familiar voice whispered, It's me, Zhou. Don't make a sound. I looked up. The senior advisor from the train station was crouching next to me. Her finger pressed to her lips. Come with me, she said. No, she pulled me out from under the desk and led me to a service door at the back of the lab. We slipped through just as the men entered the front of the room. We ran down a narrow staircase, through a boiler room, and out into the cold night air. She didn't stop until we reached a parked car, a nondescript gray sedan, and pushed me into the passenger seat. She got in the driver's side and started the engine. Who are you? I gasped. A friend, she said. I've been watching you since you arrived. I was the one who sent you the photograph. My mouth fell open. I was Shinming's girlfriend. We were planning to run away together. He told me everything he knew before he died. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled on the steering wheel. I've been waiting for someone brave enough to finish what he started. Why didn't you do it yourself? Because I'm a coward, and because I had to survive long enough to find someone who could. She looked at me. You're that someone, Lin-Wan. She drove through the dark streets of Beijing. The city lights blurred past the window. Where are we going? I asked. Somewhere safe, somewhere they won't find us. And then what? She took a deep breath. Then we take down the Shin family, together. She took a deep breath. Then we take down the Shin family, together. The gray sedan hummed through the empty streets. I stared at Zhou Mei's profile, the sharp jaw, the steady eyes that never left the road. She looked nothing like the quiet advisor from the station. She looked like a soldier. Tell me everything. I said. From the beginning. She turned left into a narrow alley, then pulled into a parking garage. The tires squealed on the concrete. She killed the engine and faced me. Shinming discovered the truth 6 months ago, she began. He was a junior analyst in the family's shipping division. One night, he found an invoice that didn't match any cargo manifest. He dug deeper. What he found was a network. Shin Qingwan was using the family's legitimate business to smuggle experimental bioweapons. Bioweapons, my throat tightened, modified pathogens, designed to target specific genetic markers. She was selling them to foreign buyers. The laboratory you were investigating, it was the production facility. Shinming copied files, took photographs. He planned to go to the authorities, but he was killed. Zhou Mei's jaw clenched. They found out, his car was forced off the highway. They made it look like an accident. But before he died, he sent me a message, a location. I went there. He'd hidden everything in a safety deposit box under a false name, and you've been waiting ever since. I sent you the photograph anonymously because I saw you asking questions. I needed to know if you were one of them or one of us. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a key. This opens the box. The evidence is complete. Financial records, buyer identities, lab logs, enough to bring down the entire family. I took the key. It was cold and heavy in my palm. Then why haven't you gone to the police? I asked. Because the Shin family owns half the police in the city. Shin Qingwan's brother-in-law is the deputy commissioner. Any report I file would be buried before lunch. She started the engine again. But I know someone who can help. A journalist. He's been investigating the family for years. If we give him the evidence, he'll publish it internationally. The pressure will force an independent investigation. She drove out of the garage. The sky was starting to lighten, a pale gray dawn over Beijing. Where is this journalist? He's hiding too, out in the suburbs. We need to get there before Shin Qingwan's people find us. I gripped the key until the edges bit into my skin. They already know we're together. The men at the lab, they were looking for me, and you saved me. That means you're compromised now too. I know. Zhou Mei's voice was calm, but I've been running for 6 months. I'm tired of running. She pressed the accelerator. The sedan shot forward. We drove for 40 minutes, zigzagging through side streets and residential neighborhoods. Twice, Zhou Mei doubled back to check for tails. The city gave way to industrial zones, then farmland. Finally, she pulled onto a dirt road lined with dying poplar trees. A small farmhouse stood at the end, its windows dark. He's here, she said. Stay close to me. We got out. The morning air smelled of damp earth and diesel. Zhou Mei knocked on the door. 3 quick taps. A pause, then 2 more. The door opened a crack. A man's face appeared, gaunt and tired. Zhou Mei, he said, you're early, we have company, and we're being hunted. The man opened the door wider. He was in his 50s, with gray-streaked hair and the kind of weary eyes that had seen too many conspiracies. Get inside. Quickly, we stepped into the farmhouse. It was sparsely furnished, a table, 2 chairs, a laptop, stacks of papers. The man locked the door behind us. This is Lin Wan. Zhou Mei said. She has the key. I held it up. Shin Ming's evidence. You're the journalist, Wan Lei, former chief investigative reporter at the Beijing Times. Now I'm a ghost. He gestured to the laptop. I've been building the case file for a year, but I'm missing the lab data. If you have it, we can break this open. The bank opens at 9, Zhou Mei said. We need to get the box before Shin Qingwan's people find out. Wan Lei shook his head. They already know. I intercepted a communication 20 minutes ago. Shin Qingwan has put a 10 million yuan bounty on you two, alive, if possible, but she's authorized lethal force. My stomach dropped. Then we go now, Zhou Mei said. Before they have time to surround the bank, we moved. Wan Lei grabbed a duffel bag with his laptop and files. We piled into his beat-up van and headed back toward the city. The morning traffic was thickening. Every car that pulled alongside us made my heart race. Zhou Mei sat in the passenger seat, watching the mirrors. Wan Lei drove with a practiced calm. The bank is in Chaoyang district, he said. Flagship branch. They have a safety deposit vault in the basement. We'll need a withdrawal slip and the key. That's it. And if they've been tipped off, I asked. Then we improvise. We reached the bank at 8:55. A line of customers already waited outside the glass doors. Wan Lei parked around the corner. I'll stay with the van. Keep the engine running. If you're not out in 15 minutes, I leave without you. Zhou Mei looked at me. Ready? I nodded. My mouth was dry. We walked to the bank entrance. The security guard eyed us but said nothing. Inside, the marble floors gleamed under fluorescent lights. Zhou Mei led me to the vault staircase. A bank officer met us at the bottom. Can I help you? We're here to access a safe deposit box. Zhou Mei showed the key and a withdrawal slip she'd prepared earlier. The officer examined them, then nodded. Follow me. He unlocked the iron gate. The vault was a long room lined with numbered boxes. He led us to number 47, inserted a master key, and stepped back. You have 10 minutes. Zhou Mei inserted her key. The lock clicked. She pulled out the long metal box and carried it to a small private booth. I followed. Inside, The box was full of manila folders and USB drives. Jomei opened the first folder, financial statements, transaction logs, photographs of laboratory equipment. She flipped through them with trembling hands. "This is it," she whispered. "Everything." We stuffed the contents into her bag. As we closed the empty box, my phone vibrated. I checked the screen. An unknown number. Asterisk. "They're outside. 3 vehicles. I'll create a distraction. Go out through the service entrance, turn left at the end of the hall, down the stairs, through the kitchen. One will meet you at the loading dock. ZM." Asterisk. I showed Jomei. Her face went pale. "He's sacrificing himself." "No." I grabbed her arm. "We have to go. That's what he wants." We ran. The service entrance was unguarded. We burst into a narrow hallway, down a flight of stairs, through a kitchen where cooks gaped at us. We slammed through a fire door into the loading dock. One Lay's van screeched to a stop in front of us. The side door slid open. "Get in." We jumped in. The van roared away as gunshots rang out behind us, and then a louder explosion shook the street. One Lay cursed. "They've got explosives. They're not messing around." I looked back through the rear window. The bank's front entrance was obscured by smoke. A car was on fire. People were screaming. "One Lay," Jomei said, her voice breaking. "What did you do?" "I drove a stolen garbage truck through their formation and jumped up before it hit a gas line." He managed a grim smile. "Old journalist trick. Now hold on, we're going underground." He swerved into a parking garage, then down a ramp into what looked like an old subway tunnel. The van's headlights illuminated dark, abandoned tracks. "Where does this lead?" I asked. "A station that was closed after a fire in the 90s, no one uses it. We can lay low for a few hours while I upload everything to secure servers." We drove in darkness for 10 minutes. The tunnel smelled of rust and rot. Finally, One Lay stopped the van beside a concrete platform. "This is as far as we go. Let's find a place to work." We climbed out. The platform was littered with broken tiles and graffiti. Jomei carried the evidence bag like it was her child. One Lay set up his laptop on a collapsed ticket counter. "I'll need 2 hours to encrypt and distribute the files," he said. "After that, no one can stop the story from going live." We sat in the dim light of the laptop screen. The silence was broken only by dripping water and the distant rumble of trains above us. I looked at Jomei. "What happens after this?" "If we survive," she said quietly, "I'm going to find a quiet place by the sea, open a small bookstore. Never look at a shipping manifest again. You deserve that." "So do you." She reached out and squeezed my hand. For the first time in days, I felt something like hope. Then the tunnel echoed with the sound of footsteps, many footsteps. Coming closer. One Lay froze. "They found us." The footsteps grew louder. Flashlight beams flickered at the far end of the tunnel. "They must have tracked the van," Jomei whispered. One Lay closed his laptop. "I've uploaded 60%. Not enough. I need more time." "Then buy it." I stood up. "Jomei, give me the bag. I'll lead them away." "No." She grabbed my arm. "You'll be killed. They want the evidence more than they want me. If I have it, they'll follow. You two can finish the upload from a different spot." "It's suicide," One Lay said. "It's the only way." I pulled the bag from Jomei's grasp. "You said you were a coward, Jomei. You're not. You've been braver than anyone I've ever met. Now let me be brave for once." Her eyes glistened. "Linwan, go. Find a place to hide. I'll draw them as far as I can." I didn't wait for an answer. I turned and ran down the tracks in the opposite direction, the bag thumping against my back. "She's there," a voice shouted. After her, flashlights converged on me. I sprinted, jumping over debris, my lungs burning. The tunnel branched ahead. I took the left fork, then another left, deeper into the dark. The footsteps were closer. I heard shouts, curses. A gunshot rang out. The bullet ricocheted off the wall beside me. I ducked into an alcove. My heart hammered. I pressed myself against the cold concrete. The pursuers passed me. I waited, counting to 10, then crept back the way I came. I found a rusted maintenance ladder leading up to a manhole cover. I climbed, pushed the cover open, and emerged onto a street lined with abandoned warehouses. The morning sun blinded me. I blinked, orienting myself. I was on the edge of the city, near the railway yards. I needed to find a way back to Jomei. But I had no phone, no map, no plan. Then I heard a car engine. A black sedan turned the corner and stopped in front of me. The door opened. Shin Qingwan stepped out. She was dressed in a tailored white suit, her hair perfectly coiffed, as if she were heading to a board meeting. She smiled, a cold, predatory smile. "Linwan, I was wondering when we'd finally meet." I clutched the bag. "You're too late. The evidence is already being uploaded." "Is it?" She raised an eyebrow. "You mean the files your journalist friend is transmitting from the old subway station?" "I've had a team jamming All signals in a 2-kilometer radius for the past hour. Nothing got through. My blood ran cold. Wanlei, I choked. He's dead. So is your friend Zhou. Shen Qingwan's smile widened. I had them shot while you were playing hide-and-seek in the tunnels. You were the decoy. Remember, you led my men away. Very clever, but also very stupid. Tears burned my eyes. I wanted to scream. Give me the bag, she said, and I'll let you live. I'll even give you a job. You're resourceful. I could use someone like you. I'd rather die. That can be arranged. She snapped her fingers. 2 men emerged from the sedan, guns drawn. I looked at the bag in my arms, the evidence that had cost so many lives, the proof that Shen Qingwan was a monster, and I realized, if the upload was blocked, the physical copies were all that remained. I couldn't let her have them. I turned and ran. Shoot her. Shen Qingwan screamed. Bullets whizzed past me. I zigzagged, dove behind a dumpster. A bullet grazed my shoulder, a sharp burn. I gritted my teeth. I had to get to the railway yards. A train was moving, a freight train, picking up speed. If I could jump onto it, I might escape, but the bag was too heavy. I was slowing down. I made a choice. I opened the bag, grabbed a handful of the most damning files, the lab logs with Shen Qingwan's signature, the photos of bioweapons, the transfer records, and shoved them into my jacket. The rest I scattered into the wind. Papers flew everywhere, tumbling across the tracks. Stop her. Get those papers. Men scrambled to catch them, but the wind was strong. Documents fluttered over the train tracks, into the path of the oncoming locomotive. The train's horn blared. I ran alongside the moving cars. Desperation gave me strength. I grabbed a ladder on the side of a boxcar, pulled myself up, and clung to it as the train accelerated. Below, I saw Shen Qingwan's enraged face shrink into the distance. Her men were still chasing papers. I had escaped, for now, but I was alone. Zhou was dead. Wanlei was dead. The evidence was scattered or jammed. I had a handful of documents and a burning need for justice.